You're not necessarily trying to cure the ink all the way, you're just trying to get it dry to the touch. So that's dry. Actually, the bottom ridge mark's not dry, so I'm gonna put it back under there for a second, just make sure it's dry. Today, I've got a 2-color screen print for you on light blue shirts with red and black ink. We're gonna burn the screens, we're gonna set up the job, we're gonna print the job, and I'm gonna give you tips throughout the whole process. My name's Steven. Over the last 10 years, I've helped hundreds of people learn how to screen print, and at NorCal Screen Print Supply, we've helped thousands of customers make the right buying decisions when it comes to supplies and equipment for screen printing. Stick around, toward the end, I'll have a couple bonus tips for you as well. So I've got my films ready to go here. I have the red layer, and we're gonna run this red on a 230 because there's some pretty fine detail in there. And then we have our black layer here. We're gonna run this on a 180. Should work out pretty well. Have my screens ready to go here. So let's get them lined up. We'll go black first. I'm gonna burn my imprint. So it starts about 5-inch outer edge of the screen. Always wanna make sure these films are face down. Got my films going here. Got them placed in the same spot on each screen. Got 230, 180. Let's go ahead and expose these. Make sure your glass is clean. There's no particles, dust, debris. Make sure all good, no particles on our screen. Bring it down. Turn on the vacuum. Wait till it sucks down almost all the way, not quite all the way. And then we are gonna turn on the exposure lights. Got the first screen exposed, take the film off. This is going straight into a tank of only water. What this does is pre-develop our screen. Everywhere we blocked out with the light, the water is going to loosen that emulsion up, and it's gonna make it real easy to rinse out. So while we are burning our second screen, we submerge that in the water, 1 to 2, 3 to 4 minutes. If it stays in there a half hour, it's not going to dissolve all of the emulsion because it's been exposed properly. So a couple things you're gonna notice, we have the lights on here in the warehouse, and I've tested this environment. I burned hundreds of screens in here, and it does not affect the screens in between kind of taking them out of the darkroom and putting the films on. In that amount of time, you can see our darkroom here, I do have shielded from the sun. If we have the roll-up door open, we could even have this door open with, you know, the black sheet here. It protects these screens and keeps them in a light-safe environment. But we can bring them out and burn them in the light here, and it's not gonna pre-expose our screens. It will be fine, it works fine. I always coat the screens out here, and I burn them out here, and my screens come out perfect. So test your environment and see if it will work with your lights. We have some LEDs in here. There's not a ton of light coming in, but you will notice I have the roll-up door closed. I would not do this with the roll-up door open because then direct sunlight will hit our screens and it'll pre-expose them and fry them, and they're not gonna come out good. So just a little tip on that. And I wanna make a note on the tank of water to pre-develop these screens. It doesn't really matter how long you leave it in the water. All the water is doing is loosening that emulsion that we've blocked out. You can see the imprint there. So if I was to leave this here overnight, I would come here in the morning and all of the emulsion that we blocked out would be dissolved and the stencil would be fine. It would be intact. And the reason for that is we've exposed it to this full UV light for 30 seconds on the exposure unit, and we've hardened all of it. So it will hold up even overnight. If you left it in here for a week, I don't know, it might start to dissolve, but luckily I haven't had that happen. We're gonna rinse this out. First, we're gonna make sure this one's all the way in the water. Turn on our backlight. I like to face the screen away from me. So for rinsing out a screen, you don't necessarily have to have a pressure washer. It works really good for halftones and fine detail, but if you don't have one, if you pre-develop your screen, your emulsion is gonna come out much easier and you could get away with like a garden attachment like this one. When it comes to reclaiming your screens though, you'll want a pressure washer because it's much easier to get out that old emulsion and blast it out. But start with the screen away from you. So when I finish, I do face the screen toward me to finish off one more pressure wash, but I don't hit this too hard because I don't want to blast it out all the way. But I do want to make sure that my fine detail is fully rinsed out. So. All right, here's our design. You can see where it's all light blue there, the area that's gonna rinse out. So if we come in here and we make a circle with our finger out of the print area, we should not see emulsion all gummed up there, which we don't, and it's good. If we come over here and we start to rub right here, you'll see that emulsion start to kind of gum up. That's good. If you pull this out of the water and you didn't see the imprint there at all, that's a sign that it's gonna be very difficult to rinse out, and you probably need to have it on your exposure light less time. So, and if you blast this thing and it hits over here and just makes a hole, and you probably need it on the exposure unit longer. There's nothing in this water. This water is only meant to stop the exposure. That's the big tip, is you stop the exposure before you let any more light hit it. So if this roll-up door was open, we can open it now that we've stopped the exposure with the water, but if it was open, I would close it. I don't want to expose screens with the door open. I have some really fine detail in this design that I'm trying to get to rinse out. The artwork was not super high quality, but I could work with it. But there's some lines in here I'm trying to get all the way out. Usually the best place to dry them will be in the sun. All right, we're gonna set these out to dry. With full sunlight and a little breeze, they should dry pretty quick. If it's really windy out, then you don't wanna set them up like that because they'll blow over in the wind. And we have a work order here that has all of our sizes and quantities and has a mock-up, has the art, and it has it laid out on the shirt. So it's very important that you document all the details for your job in a work order like this. This one is from Printavo, but there's a bunch of software out there you should check out, make the right choice for your shop. All right, so we've got our black taped off and we're gonna actually register our red color to the black. So I'm gonna put some black ink on here and we're gonna print the black. And this is a test shirt. So I bought a couple extra shirts and I would normally use a rag shirt, but I'm out of any white rags. So I'm using one of the shirts from the actual order. Sometimes I'll put the film onto the platen and I'll register to the film, but in this case, I'm kind of in a hurry and I think it's gonna be pretty cut and dry. So I'm gonna print my black ink and register the red to my black. Got a nice flooding the print area and I'm gonna give this a push. Maybe one more time just to get the ink through there, a nice ink deposit. You can see my registration marks nicely. Print's coming through nicely. I'm gonna flash dry that. A note on flash drying, when you're putting these under our flash dryer, you're not necessarily trying to cure the ink all the way, you're just trying to get it dry to the touch. So that's dry. Actually, the bottom reg mark's not dry, so I'm gonna put it back under there for a second, just make sure it's dry. When you put it under the flash dryer, you're trying to get it dry to the touch so that you can build, like if you're printing white ink and you're print flash print, you're trying to kind of build your print and make it a tiny bit thicker and more opaque. If you printed a layer of white and you didn't flash dry it and you just printed another layer of white, you're not building on anything, you're not making it more opaque. But if you put it underneath the flash dryer, bring it back, print it again, you're printing a second layer and it's like a primer layer and an outer layer and the print's gonna pop a lot more. But the point overall of a flash dryer isn't necessarily to cure the ink on your shirts. You can use it for that, but most of the time in multicolor production in this sort of situation, the flash dryer is just to get the ink dry to the touch in between colors so that we're not gonna get a bunch of buildup on the bottom of our screen. And you'll see when I print the red, you're not gonna see any wet ink from the black on here because we got it dry with the flash dryer. So now we're gonna register our red to our black. And I'm looking at these reg marks and I'm gonna look at our registration marks and I'm gonna start on the far side. I'm gonna push this reg mark down and see what needs to happen. And I'm gonna use the same micro registration on this side to align the vertical lines into place, which I don't know if you saw that, it was real quick. And then I'm gonna come over to this one and I'll be using this registration knob. So it needs to come back a little bit, right about there. Check the other one again, still good there. Now I'm gonna finish with my Z micro and that's gonna push the screen over ever so slightly into registration. So we ended up about right there and you can see the reg mark went kind of dark and that's what we want. I'm gonna lift up the screen and drop it back down and I'm gonna check to make sure my reg is still in, which it is, it didn't shift. That's great. When you use that method where you just do this side and you get the horizontals into place and you finish by moving the screen this way or that way, it's a little system that makes it a lot easier to register jobs quickly. If you have any questions about that, leave them in the comments too. I'd be happy to answer them. This is a classroom that we're printing this job in. This is not really a production facility. And over the last 10 years, we've hosted a whole bunch of screen printing classes, manual screen printing classes, and we've taught people how to screen print. If you're interested in learning, we'd love to have you here. We have a course available on our website. It's a 2-day class. We go over color separations, film output, screen exposure. We do setup like this. We burn screens, we set them all up and we do production. We teach you how to do production for yourself in your own business environment. If you're interested in that at all, we'd love to have you. Like I said, check on our website, norcalsps.com. I'm gonna bring this up and down again and just give it a final check here. It's looking good to me. I'm gonna select our red ink and a squeegee and we're gonna finish this test print of our Century Clear. And that creates a nice soft hand, makes it a little bit easier to print, and it also makes it a little less crusty hand feel. Give this a nice little flood. You can see how much pressure it takes to do a flood. And also notice the angle of the squeegee. If I bring this squeegee way down here, it's gonna leave all the ink behind. I'm gonna keep the squeegee upright with 0 pressure and just pull it toward me and keep the angle the same. And I create a nice flooded area. Now notice I have a bunch of ink I pulled over here. So when I go to print, I'm gonna get behind that ink for my print stroke. And at first, it might be hard to get it to move. So you give it a little shimmy and you push one arm forward. So you're coming at like an angle. And I got my ink nice and clear through there. And there is our print. I'm instantly thinking that that looks really nice. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna inspect the registration a little closer. Things don't always go exactly perfect, and I'm looking at this art, and this little part right here has some things that didn't burn out there. And this is called the salmon trout head, Tlingit and Haida native art. This little guy right here, and you can see there's a fine line around it that's only partially there. And then there's a fine line in our main ovoid here around it that did show up, but it's a little bit light. So I'm going to look at the artwork briefly, and I may burn the screen again, but we're gonna take a little pause and check it out. So when you're printing, you always got to be looking out for any sort of inconsistency or pinhole developing in your screen. I just looked down here, there's just a tiny little couple of pieces of lint. I want to make sure that they are not ink or pinholes. So the way I run production, I always have something underneath the flash dryer. Some people will load 4 shirts and print 4 shirts and take all 4 shirts off. I don't do that. I always have something underneath the flash dryer. So what I'll do is I'll load this one right here, print the red, which is our first color. Now I have, this will go underneath the flash dryer to get dry to the touch. This one's already been printed. I bring down the black, hit that twice. I'm gonna bring it up. Give it the pop. You want to pop it straight up so you don't stretch out the print. And then we're going to go straight in, wet. Conveyor, the black ink is still wet. So when I load my shirt, you don't want to bunch it up like this, like it's all crazy. You don't need to do that. You can if you really want to, but I wouldn't do that. Grab it loose at the bottom, spread it, and we're going to put it about all the way onto our platen here, and then you're going to underneath pull it under so that make sure that we clear this bottom bracket under here. From there, we're going to pull it all the way onto the platen, and we're going to look at it. It needs to come back and to my left. So we're going to lift it up off the platen and back and down where we want it. If it's still not where I want it, I'll pull it all the way on again. And you want to always handle the shirt where these seams all meet here at the shoulder. And we're going to lift it up off the platen, straight back, and drop it. And that's how you get it where you want it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about troubleshooting a common problem that happens throughout your print run. So we got about 40 to 50 shirts we're doing here. We've probably done about half of them. It doesn't happen to me as much as it used to, but occasionally your print will come out of registration. If your print comes out of registration, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be because something is not tightened all the way. So the first thing I would check is your screen clamp, your rear clamp. Make sure that's tightened all the way. The next thing is going to be your print head. You may have adjusted your micro registration and didn't tighten down your print head, and that will commonly stay in registration for a while, and then as you're spinning your screens around for your print run, it's going to gradually come out. So check those 2 things, and the next thing you want to check is going to be your platen. Underneath here we have our platen, which has 2 of these knobs on the bottom and 1 on the side. You can see around here, there's 3 total knobs for the platen. Now, if those knobs are not snug down, your platen will move when you go to rotate your press to the next one. It'll move ever so slightly, and that would cause your registration to be off only on that one shirt. So that's another thing. If your registration's coming off, you want to make sure you look, is it on all of them? Is it only on one? And the next thing is snug down the screen clamp, snug down the press head right here. And usually you will find that one of these is loose, and that will fix your registration problem. Unfortunately, you got to put it back into registration. But once you get it in, if everything's tightened down, it's going to stay in registration for the most part. So this job is kind of special to me because it is for Tlingit and Haida, and I am Tlingit, Native American from the Pacific Northwest. And it's kind of fun for me to connect with them and be able to do this art and print these shirts. I've been practicing what we call formline design, or this native style art, for about almost 2 years now. This is not my design, but I've been designing stuff like this, and it pleases me greatly to be able to print it and to work with Tlingit and Haida in our local office here in Sacramento. And I hope they love the shirts, and just kind of a special thing. So that's pretty cool. We have wrapped up production on the job. See here, got all of them done. Very pleased to be able to print these for our friends at Tlingit and Haida. And if you have any questions on anything we did here in the production, make sure you leave us a comment and let us know. If you have an idea for a video that you want to see, let us know and we'll try to make it. I'd like to thank you for watching. Check out norcalsps.com if you need color separations, help with vectorization, if you need films, if you need pre-burn screens, or any of these inks we use here today are available all on norcalsps.com as well as equipment. So thanks for watching and keep on printing.